Greetings from the Holy Apple, Holy Land, 30th of Sivan, last day of the holy month of Sivan, 5778. Unfortunately, many times I have classes that were prepared, took some sometimes weeks, sometimes months, depending on what the subject is, to go through different subjects. But sometimes in life, and I find myself too many times in life, you gotta put them on the side, you gotta put them on hold, and you gotta put the cards on the table and see what's happening, look around a little bit, our surroundings, and relate to what's happening. Maybe we'll be able to improve ourselves. So, with that said, today's subject is going to be the destruction of the settlement Netiv HaAvot in the Gush Etzion block. Where do you start? And where do you start? I look back myself, I look back some 34, 35 years ago, and I remember as a student in the yeshiva in Yamit in the Sinai desert, and then the Prime Minister then gave it away to the Egyptians, remembering that the Sinai desert is 3 times the size of Israel today, which means if you look at a map of Israel today, the Sinai desert that we had back then is 3 times the size of the modern, today, up-to-date Israel. So, starting from there 34, 35 years ago, this is one of these recycled garbage instances that we have that throughout the years, they come back in different shapes and form, but it's pretty much the same old song, and it's really hard to believe that we've let it go, we've let it happen and keep on going for so many years, and we haven't put a stop to it. It is really an X. It is a failure, one of these F grades that we get for not being able to stop these, and for the government to understand that it's not in their interest to give away Jewish land. It just doesn't pay. As they say, crime doesn't pay. So I guess that's where we begin 34, 35 years ago, and we'll see how not too much has changed. A few things, but not too much. And the few things that have changed are not necessarily in the best direction. Okay, first of all, I had tremendous miracle today. As I said, this happened yesterday. I got back in the middle of the night, actually it was in the morning already, in the AM, to Elon Marais. I slept for 2.5 hours, and that's, if I fall asleep here, you wake me up. And so I'm like right off it. I just, 2.5 hours of sleep, and I'm here. Wasn't sure that I would be able to do it today, but somehow I gathered the parts together to come over, because I think it's important as it happened. So yesterday was the 29th of Sivan. What was the miracle? The miracle was that I come to the last group that I teach. I in the Talmud Torah, the school that I teach, so I came to the last group, and I knock on the door, and there's nobody in the class. So that's very unusual. So I asked the class next door, where's my class? Oh, they had a hike today in the settlement of Itamar. So amazingly, because as I said, of course I have a class prepared for today, but I didn't want to talk about what I had scheduled. I want to talk about straight from the heart what went down yesterday. So I had all of a sudden I was able to eat, number one, which I've not done in a while, like a day and a half, preparing for this, for the expulsion. And also gave me a chance to put down some ideas, because I get car sick, so even though I hitch here, it's hard for me to jot things down right when I'm driving. So tremendous miracle, something that never happens. I mean, maybe once a year they go on an outing. So this was gave me a chance a little bit to put down the ideas. Okay, yesterday the day of the D-Day of destruction was the 29th of Sivan, an amazing time. I always must give credit to these wicked people that are the ones that put into motion these expulsions, because they always come up with the greatest of dates. For example, the expulsion from Gush Katif in the Gaza region. It was originally they scheduled, because they only are familiar with the secular date, so they made it on the 9th day of the month of Av, which of course commemorates the destruction of both temples. I mean, you can't get more classic than that. The destruction of the temple, the day that the spies came back to the desert and said that there's no way that we could make it in the land of Israel. The inhabitants are too fortified. The land is too fortified. They're too strong for us. An amazing thing. They always come up with tremendous dates you could learn a lot from. So this one they couldn't have done better than this one. This one they chose the date for the expulsion of Netiv HaAvot in the Gush Etzion Efrat area. They chose for the 29th. Now that should ring a bell. The 29th of Sivan, ding 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 ding, was the day that Moses sent the spies in the desert for 40 days to check out the land of Israel. And the ending was not too good. In fact, because of this tragic event of sending of the spies, God said the land is good. There's no need to send spies. Moses also did not want to send spies. He was forced by the people to send the spies. So this event caused the destruction. In the Talmud, there are 5 various tragedies, and if you look at the history of the world, there are so many tragedies that took place for the Jewish people on the 9th day of Av. The source of the 9th day of Av is not the destruction of the temple, is the fact that the sages in the desert did not want to enter the land of Israel. This was the catalyst of all future events. So, amazing thing. We have here the 29th, the spies were sent, and we have on the 29th, 4,000 some years later, 4,500 years later or so, we have here an amazing event that the new spies, if you ever thought about it in English, it's very interesting. Spies and despise. Same word, spies and despise. So, I don't know if that's like if you have an Italian accent, that's what you'd say, like despised. I don't know if maybe that's an Italian accent on it, the despise. But anyways, they despise the land. And this is a continuation. We have to understand, if we were successful in fixing and repenting for the sin of the spies, we wouldn't be in the mess that we are in today. The fact that they could keep on doing this over and over again is we still have not repented, we still have not fixed the sin of the spies, despising the land of Israel.
It's worse though, because they're in control today.
Yeah, today the spies are in control. So, amazing thing. Second amazing thing is that the last day to destroy Netiv HaAvot was this Friday, the 2nd day of Tammuz. That's very interesting. Which means the government gave the army and the police up until the second day of Tammuz. The police and army decided to destroy it, to begin destroying it, or destroy it on the 29th, to give themselves leeway for those 3 more days that they have. But it's an amazing, once again, because we know that the Zohar Kadosh says that the year was given to Jacob and to his brother Esau. There's some years of the month that are good for the Jewish people. The essence of the months are good. There are months that the Gentiles have the advantage over the Jewish people. Now let me tell you an amazing thing. Put on a seatbelt for this. In the year, there are bad months, but they're not that bad. I'll give you an example. We just spoke about the month of Av. It's a pretty bad time. 5 tragic events happened to the Jewish people on the 9th day of Av and throughout history. However, according to many of the holy books, the bad times go only for half the month. From the 15th of Av till the end, this is a time of tremendous mercy on the Jewish people. That's why it says in the Talmud, there were no happier days for the Jewish people than the Yom Kippur, when Hashem forgives our sins, and also the 15th day of Av, which 5 also happy events happen then. So we have, for example, another month which is difficult, the month of Shvat. This is in the winter, about maybe January time. But also here, it's only for a half month that we have bad times. When it comes to Tu B'Shvat, the 15th day of Shvat, then the times become good for the Jewish people. However, there are 2 months of the year that they are difficult for the entire period of 30 days. Out of 12 months, there are 2 that are difficult the entire 30 days. What are they? In the winter, we have Tevet. Once again, January, February. In the summer, we have the month of Tammuz, which we are entering tomorrow. So it's an amazing thing. In the month of Tammuz, it is written that the nations of the world, now when we talk about the nations of the world, we're not necessarily talking about the nations coming over our bodies and souls and subserving us to them. It's a kind of a self-exile, which means the Jewish people are in their self-exile. We are exiling ourselves. We are in an exile mode. We are in a sinning mode, unfortunately. Not all, of course, but many of the people that have power are. So, an amazing thing. They decide to destroy Netiv HaAvot on the 29th, the day that the spies were sent, and this turned out to be a tremendous tragedy and brought the destruction of the land of Israel. It brought the destruction of the temple, and the end date to destroy Netiv HaAvot was the second day of Tammuz, which of course is the month that the power of evil and impurity rule for the entire month. It is a very, very difficult, it's a very, very difficult month for the Jewish people. You got to hold on really tight. The entire month is in the hands, it's not in good hands. You're not in Allstate. If you're in Allstate, you're in good hands. But here you're not in good hands. We're in the hands of impurity, forces of evil. So we see the forces of evil, what they did. They tossed 20 families out of their homes in Netiv HaAvot. Now you have to get this. Netiv HaAvot, it's not your standard what I'm used to. I mean, since I've been in Israel, I've merited to be in settlements like Beit El, Shiloh, Kiryat Arba, Hebron, Elon Moreh. So I've been around, and those are the settlements that I know, that I'm comfortable with. But man, you go to this Netiv HaAvot, this is like high society. This is like the Beverly Hills of the settlements. That whole area, the Gush Etzion, there's a lot of English speaking over there, a lot of Americans over there, the Efrat, Elazar, Neve Daniel area. If you don't speak English there, I don't know how you make it. But this is not your, little tent that the government comes, or your little home, your little caravan mobile home. No, these are like mansions that they're coming and destroying. And it's really amazing the cruelty and the wickedness that we see here. Of the 15 houses that, at this stage, that were slated to be destroyed, there are the majority of them have 1 meter. That 1 meter of the house is sticking out into the majority of these homes have 1 meter. I mean, it's like this much, 1 meter, that is on what they call disputed, quote unquote. I use this term very loosely. We could have a whole class on the terminologies here that are used, but that's not my purpose today. But imagine that the families were willing to, to cut off a little bathroom so their house would be in the perimeters of the settlement, and the government and the courts were not willing to hear this. So imagine that you have this much of a home, a gigantic, a mansion that's in a problematic, quote-unquote problematic, nothing's problematic in the land of Israel, all the land belongs to the Jewish people, and even according to the secular law, it belongs to us, but I'm not going to go into it right now. So imagine that cruelty, the wickedness of the court system and the government that didn't do anything to stop that. It's amazing. You're taking families, each family, 22 families, they have 5-6 kids each. You have traumatized, you have destroyed people's lives for their lives, the rest of their lives. Amazing thing. This is how cruel it was. The families are willing to take off this 0.1 little zone, and they were not willing to hear it. Okay, connecting us to this week's portion, Korach, an amazing explanation that we have to engrave on our hearts, remember it all our lives. I spoke to a friend of mine, and I told him that I planned to come down the night before the destruction in Netiv HaAvot, to come down to sleep in that area. And he said, listen, the families there, except for 2, they all sold out. They're all leaving voluntarily. And it says here in this article, it says that the people of the settlement of Netiv HaAvot, they're planning a big event, a big gathering the night before the expulsion, and they are praying that thousands will come to be with them in their hour of sorrow when the forces come to take them out, and to protest. With that said, here's what they say. The families of Netiv HaAvot want to make it perfectly clear that they do not plan and they do not want any violence used, and they do not want any altercations with the forces, with the security forces, the soldiers, and the police that are coming to expel the residents. They do not want any confrontations or any violence. But however, they must add that they do not know everyone that's coming in, and they cannot take responsibility for young people that might do other things. And they go on to say that the people, except for 2 families, all of them, when the time comes, they will leave their houses voluntarily. There are 2 families that are not going to leave voluntarily, but they are also asking for no violence and no confrontations with the forces of destruction. I want to read on this note of the Netiv HaAvot. I wanted to read 2 things. They gave this out. To people. Thousands of copies of these papers were given out for the last couple of weeks. I'm going to read a few of the principles. It says the following. It says we're asking for a few principles here. We're happy that you came, and we know that you're a very idealistic group, and you believe in the cause, and that's very good. And number 1, you make sure that you use clean language and not use any foul language. Number 1. Number 2, you should act with honor and respect for all people that you come in contact with. Talking about, of course, the forces of evil here, and not to offend them, not to belittle them, and not to touch them. Please make sure that to make sure that you do not destroy any property. It's very interesting because they come with bulldozers and they destroy the whole house. But please be careful with my floor. Be careful with the walls over here. 5. We are asking not to use any violence of any type. Not violence by usage of speech or physical violence. And then on the opposite side, let me read you a prayer to the youth. Now, the reason why they're turning to the youth is, of course, that if you're over the age of 20, let's say, it's cutting it, if you're over the age of 20, you won't see too many people over that age. So the 99% group here that come to these expulsions, of course, are going to be kids and teenagers. So that's why they're turning to them, because there's no need to turn to anybody over the age of 20. So they have a prayer here, and I'm going to read some parts of the prayer. We're asking you, dear Lord, dear God, we're asking you, give me the strength to stand up to this test and see this crisis as part of the redemption process. As part of the redemption process. Amazing. If you read in, if you really understand the language over here, what they've built up in the last, this fantasy, there we go, that they build up about the redemption process and how we're continuously moving forward. And they want to keep it all going. Because a person might ask themselves, why should I go to the army? Why should I join the police? Why should I go to the border police? You know, a lot of different questions. Why should I support the state? A lot of questions. So they gotta keep their servants on the right track. So we're praying to God, please keep us on the right track. That we are moving forward in the redemption process. Now, with that said, of course, we're always moving forward. The Rav Tzadok Cohen from Lublin, when he would look at the clock, he would always be happy. Why? He said, we're 1 second closer to the redemption. Right? But don't forget, 1 second to the redemption, that's true. But the question is, how many Holocausts do we have down the road? How many destructions? How many downfalls? Okay, we're always moving forward. During the Holocaust, we were moving forward towards the process of redemption, but we were losing 6 million of our people. We don't want to move forward in a negative way. And listen to this. Please, God, let my eyes see only the good of the Jewish people. Right, the guys that are coming to destroy our homes, to destroy the land of Israel, to cause a desecration of God's name all over the world. People are watching. The Arabs, our enemies in the world, people are watching this tremendous, friends, doesn't matter, a tremendous desecration of God's name. Nothing helps the desecration of God's name. You could repent, you could fast, you could have Yom Kippur, you could bring your sacrifice if we had a temple, but you're going to have to pay with your life. But let me look at the good of all the people here. Now, folks, understand, this is all to understand these people have sold their souls to the state, and they're invoking, I would say, God's name in vain. They've sold their nishamot, their souls, to the state. They pledge allegiance to the state and not to God and not to the Torah. They are so intertwined. They are so part of what I will call the Israeli culture. The army, the police, we're one. Hebrew music. So it's all to make sure that our youth don't open up their eyes to see, wow, what's going on over here? What's really happening over here? Netiv HaAvot, and yesterday was Ofra, and the other day was Amona, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And please, God, give me the strength that I should not have any hate towards anyone. So we have to look favorably, with a good eye, to see all people that are there destroying the land of Israel, uprooting Jews, traumatizing kids for the rest of their lives. Let me tell you something. Yesterday where I sat, where we dug in to one of the rooms, there were 2 homes that refused to leave voluntarily. So one home was for the boys, and one home was for the girls that wanted to join. So we fortified ourselves in the bottom floor of this family's house, and inside, of course, you have one of these, a guy with a tag on. Now, if you got a tag on, you're like part of the event. Like you are part of the event. You got your tag and your name on. You're allowed to go freely wherever you want. They're not going to pick you up and arrest you, or pick you up and take you away. So in all these places, to make sure that everybody, everyone's nice, So they have these people. So where I was, there was a psychologist. There was a psychologist who, if anybody wanted to speak with him, and he would calm them down, and he seemed like a very kind of calming personality. So I was listening, he was talking to a kid, and he said, 95% of the people here, he's talking about the youth that have come to fight against expulsion, they will make it out, their soul will make it out okay, pretty much okay from this event. They'll be all right. But there's 5% or so that this will be a traumatizing event for their lives. 5%. Okay? So make the cheshbon, make the count. Let's say there were 700 people that came to fight the expulsion, 700 teenagers came, so do 5%. But let me tell you something, okay? I don't have a badge, thank God. I would never be willing to do that. And I'm not a psychologist, but let me tell you something. I've been at these places dozens of times, and I'm telling you, I'm a pretty strong person, my personality is pretty strong, but these things, they never leave you. They're always with you. You see it when you close your eyes. You see those kids' faces, you see the screaming. Thank you. You see the forces of evil, you see them, what they learned in their classes of how to hurt people. You see them pulling these moves with their hands and with their feet. You see them doing that in front of your eyes, and you hear the screaming, and you never forget it. So he could take his 95% and shove it. And the prayer goes on. Please Hashem, please God, make sure that my evil inclination won't get the best of me, and I will not come to sin. And let me go in the ways of Torah, which are the ways of peace. And please God, that I will not destroy or I will not ruin. Amazing. I mean, folks, this is just the second time I'm reading this jive. Just cannot believe it. These people are being brainwashed big time. Big time. In this week's Parsha, Korach, there's an amazing idea, and we must engrave it on our hearts. The Shlach HaKadosh, Rav Horovitz Halevi, in his book, the commentary on the 5 books of Moses, he asks a great question. How in the world does God say to Moses that he wants to destroy all the people of Israel? I mean, I understand, there's a dispute here between Korach and 250 guys maybe, and Datan v'Aviram. It's a small group. We're talking about millions of Jews. Why is everyone getting sweaty? Why is everyone getting all upset? And he says an amazing lesson. Remember it. Engrave it on your hearts. On our hearts. On mine. He says the following. That when a person sees people doing bad things, there's a positive commandment to rebuke your fellow Jew. Hochech tochech tamitecha. The Shlach Kadosh then asks a question, but I don't understand. This is a positive commandment. And we have a principle in Torah that when there is a positive commandment, then a person is not punished for not observing a positive commandment. We are punished when we do not observe a negative. When we transgress a negative commandment, then we're hit. But if we do not accomplish, if we do not do a positive mitzvah, then we're not held responsible. However, with that said, the Talmud tells us that there are certain times where this leniency does not apply. And that is where we're at a time of wrath. When a person is at a time where there are tragedies that are befalling the Jewish people, when times are not good, at those times, if we refrain from observing a positive commandment, like rebuking our fellow friends, our fellow Jews, then God will come and punish us. So this was a time, in the time of Korach, this was a time of God's anger. And God is waiting to see if the people will protest for what this small group of people are doing against Moses. I mean, imagine that. People are coming against the most holy guy in the world, Moses. And the Jewish people can't get off their seats and protest and say, we will not have any of this. You will not offend Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe our leader. So that is an unbelievable lesson that the Shlach Kadosh gives us. That is why God was almost destroyed the entire Jewish people. Why? Because of the fact they did not protest. They did not protest. So think about it. We're at the week. This destruction, once again, the forces of evil, they plan everything just beautifully. They planned it in the week of Korach. And in the week of Korach, the Jewish people were almost destroyed. Why? Because they didn't get off their seats and protest against what was happening. Amazing, an amazing thing. Do we realize how many residents live smack in a 3 or 4 kilometer radius? It's walking distance from any settlement there. Do you know how many people? I mean, hold on to your seats. This, I'm giving you statistics from 2 years ago. So you have to bring them up a little bit. Keep them updated. So this is from 2 years ago. In the Gush Etzion area, according to the municipality, there are 23,000 residents in Gush Etzion. In Efrat, there are 10,000 residents in Efrat. Altogether, 33,000 people. 33,000 people in a 3-4 kilometer radius. Walking distance. And we get 700 kids to try to stop this expulsion. And we get maybe 2,000 people from all over Israel to come down and not do anything, but at least protest the fact that the government and their cohorts are coming to destroy a place in the land of Israel. We can only muster up 2,000 people. And as I said, we're talking about at least 2 years ago, 33,000 people in that area. Tremendous thing. In this week's portion, we hear not protesting. It's really amazing that when I look at these kids, they're really great kids. You can't find kids like that. You have to understand, it's hard for people out there to understand unless you've been there, been there, done that. It's a little bit hard to understand, but try doing your best. We're talking about 500, 700 kids. Some of them, let's say 200, 300 of them, fortify themselves inside a bunker or a room there. And it's just a scary experience because you don't know how it's going to turn out. You don't know how you're going to end up. You don't know if you're going to make it out, how you're going to make it out. Are you going to make it? Are you going to injure? Are you going to be bloodied? Do you understand what kind of feeling that is? And for a kid, so to uplift it, to take yourself beyond that fear. You're coming against an army. You're coming against a police force. You're coming against the government. It's an amazing thing. These kids are tremendous that sacrifice the belief. And, you know, a lot of them, that's true, a lot of them do have the side curls, the what they call the peyot. But some of them don't. You know, some of them have long hair, some of them have these freaky kind of haircuts, and they're also there with us. So I have to give them, as we're talking about various angles of this destruction, and let me tell you something. In Israel especially, and also the media, they love, in Israel it's called laundry words. They take words that are harsh, and in order to soften them, they put them through a laundry service, and they sound much nicer when they come up. So they never call these expulsions. They call them a pinui. Pinui means to transfer from one place, like if you're taking out your garbage, so it's lifanot et hashpa. Take out the garbage. So you take the garbage from here and you put it over here. Okay, it's a much nicer word. Like if I want to clean my bookshelves, I want to move things out, so I remove them, or I move them over. So it's very nice language, and specifically use it. Unfortunately, we begin to use it also. So these kids, they're really amazing kids that you have to give them a tremendous amount of credit. And let me tell you, where I was, the army and the police were not successful in breaking down the barricades that these kids set up. I mean, that brought me back 34 years ago. We had a unbelievable, he was one of these, like, you know, 1 in a million, what we call a solder. People work with metals, what are they called? Welder. We had this guy, an amazing Jew. He was a welder, and he just like welded us into that bunker in the Sinai Desert, Yamid, when they came to expel us. And the army could not get in. They could not get in. He had put it together so well. Yesterday, this brought me right back to it. They were not able to get in. They had to break down a wall, which is an amazing in itself. This, do you understand? There's 80 kids in a room, very small room, and they come and they tear down a door. They don't tell you to move from the door. They just tear that door down. And, you know, thank God there's things that flew, but miraculously nobody was hurt. But this is an amazing thing. They were not able to come through the doors and the windows that the kids had welded. Amazing. So I take my hat off, if I had one, to these kids. But let me tell you something. It is so sad. It is so sad that when I hear them or I speak to them, how confused they are. How confused they are. Their whole life they've been taught, you know, the army, the police, the respect, the government. And all of a sudden, one day, a lightning bolt hits, and pow, like they open up their eyes and they see a different reality, that it's not what they were sold. And they're really confused. They are totally confused. Not only that, there's no one there to organize them. They're like chickens running around without their heads. One guy's doing this, one guy's doing that, and they say, hey, they're coming, and everybody runs in, and then just 20 minutes later they see that it was a false alarm, and this keeps on going. They have no experience, and there's no leadership. There's no leadership. This is the tragedy here. We have great youth. Most of them are confused. They have confused Jewish ideas. They don't have the true Jewish idea. Pardon the pun. And this is a tragedy because they're such good kids, and they need to hear the truth. They need to hear the words of the true Jewish idea. What I heard on the loudspeakers before entering our fortifications, over and over again from different families and from different public figures of the Gush Etzion area, was the statement, as I read in the prayer, so-called prayer, was the fact that to make sure that the kids kept their mouths clean, did not use any violent language, any dirty language. They did not lift up their hands. They did not confront. And they kept on going over this, to not use violence. Now, I don't know where these people were speaking from, so I couldn't go up and grab the microphone, but I wanted to. Folks, let's get one thing 100,000,000% clear. This line is the biggest damn lie in the entire world. This is the biggest lie in the entire world. When these clowns, that's a nice name I'm using, I'm trying to watch my language here. When these losers come and say, do not use violence, because the soldiers and police will not use violence if you do not use violence. This is the biggest lie in the world. To uproot a settlement, homes in God's land, to uproot families, husbands and wives, children, friends, work, life. When you come to uproot commandment to settle the land of Israel, positive commandment, one of the 613. When you come to uproot that commandment and desecrate God's name and traumatize people for the rest of their lives, there is no greater violence than such an act. And I don't care whose stamp is on the orders. Doesn't interest me one iota. There is nothing more violent than uprooting and desecrating God's name, and uprooting a Jewish settlement in the land of Israel, and uprooting families and traumatizing them, and having kids wet their beds and wake up at night with bad dreams, screaming. People have to start their lives from ABC, from the beginning. There is no greater violent act. You could come with a smile, as many of the big warriors did. They were 5 on us, 5 against 1, at least. There are more, but the actual time where they're coming at you, they're 5 at you. The big warriors, with the big muscles, the big warriors going against kids. some of them came and had enjoyment, smiles on their face. I heard one of the kids talking on his phone to somebody, and apparently somebody was telling him on the phone, listen, these Jews that are doing it, the soldiers and the police that are doing it, they are considered to be tinokot shenishbu, which means there's a Jewish law that if a Jew was stolen from a young age and knows nothing about Judaism, was never taught, never went to a Jewish school, a Jewish institution, so they are considered to be, they are not responsible for their actions or negative actions. I came up to this person and I said, listen, sit down for a minute. I want to tell you something. This has nothing to do with religion. This has nothing to do with being religious. There are 7 commandments that God gave the world. They're not really 7, they're 7 headlines. And within the headlines there are subtitles. Approximately, according to most opinion, there are approximately 70 commandments of Noah. And all commandments that are what we call sichli, that you don't have to be Jewish or religious to understand. It's something that's an ethical, it's something that's understood in a human being's mind. They are responsible. A Gentile is responsible as much as anybody else. There are certain laws of nature that you must go by. There are certain, you have to give charity. When you see people in need, you have to help them. That's part of the commandments of Noah. When you see people that need food, you have to help them out. That's why Ammon and Moab, these 2 nations, were not, even if they convert, they are not allowed to marry within the Jewish people. They have to only marry converts. Why? Because when they saw the Jewish people in the desert, they did not help us out, giving us drink and food. But that's not part of the 7 commandments of Noah. That's right, it's not part of the 7 commandments of Noah. But as we said, it's very much greater. There are about 70 commandments. And all commandments of being a human being, a feeling human being, being a mensch, as they say in Yiddish. Be a mensch. We're not talking about religious people. This is the basic issue here. If you are a human being, I don't care if you're Jewish or not, you do not come, okay? You could see, you could read about what's happening today. We have the internet. Google it. See what the decision was by the courts. Read it. Understand. This was a political slaughter here. This was not justice. It was not even secular justice. I don't care about justice to the seculars, because once it comes in contact, once comes contradiction to the Torah Judaism, so there's no question here at all. But I'm not even talking about that. This is not secular justice. And you participate in it, I don't care if you're Jewish or Chinese. You're going to pay the price. There are certain things that are a red or a black line. You don't cross it. So this is a tremendous, these people, these so-called leaders, yuck, yuck, yuck. So-called leaders get up, or members of parliament get up and tell the youth not to use force. And the forces will not use force. That's unbelievable. That is the biggest lie. Disgrace. You have to be an idiot not to get it, to understand that coming and uprooting people, there is no greater act of violence than this. For a person to defend themselves against violent people, you stand up and you fight back. Let's get one thing clear. I talked about the great youth. Talked also about how they're idealistic and they came and they're willing to put themselves on the line. Many of them are hurt and injured when they come out. So a lot of them are arrested. A lot of them, their just hearts are broken for who knows how long, the rest of their lives. But they're confused. And I said there's no one to gather, no one to lead them, unfortunately. And after, I'm jumping a little bit now, just to hit this point. After the destruction, a guy came up to me. I don't know who he is, but he knew who I was. He came up to me. He says, "Yehuda, can you give me a few tips how to continue to love these Jews that did this to us today?" I said, "Listen, let me tell you, you came to the right person. You came to the right person. Why do you think that you have to love people that came and made a desecration of God's name? Why do you think that we have to love people that came to uproot a settlement? We have a commandment to settle the land of Israel. And these people came and uprooted a commandment. These people stepped on the book of the Torah. Imagine a person standing, takes out the scroll from the ark, puts it on the floor and stamps upon it. That's exactly what's happening over here. You have people that destroyed, you have these forces destroyed people's lives, livelihood, kids, their psychological well-being. And the list goes on. The list goes on. Don't worry about loving them. And if you want anything, pray that very, very soon, like today, they'll repent and they'll go public and they'll say, "Listen, I made a mistake." Go on, today you could go on YouTube. Anybody, today you could get out to thousands of people. Get up and stand up and be a man or be a woman and stand up and say, "Listen, never again. I made a bad mistake. Don't you make that mistake. Repent, and then I love you." But you got to pay the price for it. You got to pay a price. Imagine a guy, he just got up and he killed somebody, and he repents. "Oh, I'm so sorry." You got to pay the price still, buddy. It's good that you're repenting. And, we might take off some time, but you're going to still sit and do a lot of time. Repenting or no penting. You should just know, 34 years ago, in the bunker of Yamit, where a group of Jews, Hashem was mercifully allowed me to be one of those people, fortified themselves in this bunker. It's a long story. It's not for this class. And Rabbi Kahan eventually made his way to Sinai Desert, to Yamit. He asked to be let in. We let him in. And then the following act took place, transpired. A person in the bunker came up and he gave a few people metal sticks to defend themselves against the forces coming in. Rabbi Kahana said, "Listen, we've made a tremendous sanctification of God's name up to now. Put those down." And then the same fellow lifted up a plastic made out of hard plastic, like a rod this big. And the rabbi said, "That's okay. That's okay." So remember the words of one of our great leaders, Rabbi Meir Kahana. Okay, I testify I was there. And those were his words. He didn't just say, "Sit back." He didn't say, yell and chant and stamp your feet. He said that was fine to defend ourselves against the forces coming in. If you come to uproot the Torah, if you come to desecrate God's name, if you come to uproot families, you are perpetrating a tremendously cruel, violently cruel act. There is no Jewish law that states that a person that is about to be raped cannot fend off the attackers in whatever way they need to be fending them off, to get them off them. Person is, according to Jewish law, of course, get those people off your back. Get those people off your back. We're not talking about opening fire on people. We're not talking about metal rods. We're talking about simple, get those people off. Everyone, use your own imagination. Okay. These people that participated in the expulsion, in this desecration of God's name, in this violent, cruel act. Let me tell you, in the 1930s, one of the leading sages of the Jewish people, his name was Rabbi Moshe Charlap. Tremendous sage, wrote dozens of books. And in one of his books, Imrot Tehorot, on page 42, he says the following line. And remember this, engrave it on your hearts all your life. Listen to this line. He says the following, that if a person will ever be in a situation where he has to deliberate whether to give away an inch of the land of Israel, forgo an inch in the land of Israel, you're deliberating, you've been posed, that question is posed to you, it is better to cut off both your thumbs than to agree to uproot 1 inch of Jewish land. Folks, do you understand? When you take off, your most important finger is that thumb. It is better, Rabbi Charlap writes, to cut off your 2 thumbs than to agree to participate in the giving away or uprooting of 1 inch of the land of Israel. Question is, after hearing these unbelievable words, and he goes on to explain, what happens if you remove 1 letter of the Torah? If you remove 1 letter of the Torah, the entire Torah is not kosher. The same too, Rabbi Charlap, in an unbelievable line. Put on that seatbelt. If a person uproots 1 inch of the land of Israel, it is the same as uprooting 1 letter of the Torah, which makes the entire Torah null and void. Not kosher. Yesterday they bought 2,300 soldiers and police. 2,300. It would have been better for them to refuse orders. It would have been better for them to cut off their thumbs, cut off their careers. Much simpler than cutting off your thumb. Doesn't hurt as much. Than to participate in this violent act of uprooting a settlement in the land of Israel. Folks, these cruel people, after they succeeded violently in bringing us out of the fortified house into the buses, these cruel people, they took us 1 hour south and dropped us off in the middle of nowhere in Kiryat Gat. Now there's a lot of people who don't have money, they don't have their wallets with them. They're not prepared. Of course, I come prepared. I've been at this movie many times. But there's a lot of people who don't have anything. And they let you out 1 hour south of the place of the expulsion, Netiv HaAvot, in Kiryat Gat. And it's cruelty, just toss you off the bus and that's it. How am I supposed to get back now? Let me tell you, it took me to get back to my car, which was parked near Netiv HaAvot. It took me 3 hours to get back. 3 hours to get back from Kiryat Gat to where my car was. And then I have another an hour and a half, 2 hours to Elon Marais. That's why I'm going on 2.5 hours of sleep here. But let me tell you another point. We talked about a protest. And when we got off that bus, people are just, you're downtrodden. You feel terrible. The whole day or 2 days you're in the dirt. You're living in the dirt over there on the floor and it's dirty. And let me tell you something. What really bothered me, these places are very affluent. I said it's the Beverly Hills. And I've been in many of these. When I was in Amona, they came twice a day and they gave food. I'm talking about they gave bread and they gave cheese and they gave pastrami and they gave fruits. Twice a day. Kids are coming, giving of their time, days, their life, their health, their well-being. Take care of these kids. So that's the way usually it is. Yesterday, in this place, I could not believe it. They're giving out, I see twice a day, they give out this white roll, white bread, roll. And in the morning they gave some chocolate, drink, chocolate milk. And then in the afternoon, they gave a roll, a white roll. This is unbelievable. Just unbelievable here. Not only that, with all their money, they can't have buses ready to take people back to Netiv HaAvot so they could pick up their stuff, or they could go back where they started from. They can't arrange. They own a bus company. They have their own bus company. They can't arrange to bring people back. We have to hitch out or from the four corners of Israel where they dump us off. So let me tell you something. How beautiful it was when we got off that bus. There was a group of people that were waiting there. We were in Kiryat Gat, okay, in the middle of nowhere. Group of guys, and they came and they said, "Listen, guys, we prepared for you." And they had a gigantic table full of food and drink, hot drinks and cold drinks. Everyone could do something. You don't have to necessarily come down to the place itself and be there. Definitely not. 100% not. But everyone could do something. Everyone could do something. A person could fast, a person could pray, a person could sit down another hour and learn, a person could sacrifice something. Today I'm not going to have ice cream. Today I'm not going to eat chocolate. Everybody has to feel when the Torah is destroyed because one letter was uprooted, when the land of Israel was destroyed because 1 inch, a lot more than 1 inch, when 22 homes were destroyed, everybody better participate. Everyone better protest against this act. So this was a tremendous lesson for me. You feel downtrodden, you feel dirty, you're sweating all over the place, and you haven't taken a shower in 2 days, and you haven't eaten properly. And then you have people that are people. Yeah, we talked about the 7 or 70 commandments, but no, just people came out there, took their time, money, bought the guys, gigantic table, gave them to eat, told everyone how they could travel. They came up to everybody and asked them, where do you need to go to? Where do you need to travel? And they told them how to get there. Some people they took. It's very important. It really uplifts a person. To finish off, what kind of people can do this? What kind of person can uproot a settlement in the land of Israel? What people could do such a thing? My humble opinion, there's only one type of people. people that have a soul of the Erev Rav, of the multitudes. When the Jewish people left Egypt, 1 to 3 million Gentiles converted and left with us. Listen to the words, and we will end with this. Listen to the words of the Gra. Listen closely, engrave it on your heart. All the exiles, all the destructions of the temple, all our problems are due to the fact that Moses received the multitudes of nations. And all those in our generation, in every generation, that are wicked or that are harsh, they are from them. They are from the souls of the multitudes. Doesn't mean their parents are, doesn't mean their brothers or sisters are, but they have a soul. These harsh people that could go and do such a terrible act, that can only be from the soul of an Erev Rav. That was in the commentary of the Gra, Rabbi Eliyahu from Vilna, on Safra Tzniuta, the first chapter, page 3. The Gra, in a different source, Even Shleima, the Gra writes the following. He says that there are 3 types of waste, 3 types of pollutants that exist in the world. There are Ishmael, Islam, there's Esav, the Christian, and then there's the Erev Rav. And the opposite, the antithesis of these 3 pollutants are Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The first 2 against the Islam and against Christianity will be the fighters of Messiah, the son of David, and the Messiah of the son of Joseph. They will fight against them. However, the redemption will not come until we remove from ourselves the multitudes. And they are very, very close to us. And these are connected to Jacob. They want to stop the learning, especially the learning of Torah. And they are very, he says it twice, the Gra, Rabbi Eliyahu from Vilna, these Erev Rav, these multitudes are extremely connected, close to the Jewish people, and the Jewish people learn from their ways. These are the wealthy people. These are the class type of people. These are the haughty ones. And it's very, very difficult to remove them from within us. So it's an amazing thing here. Either the people that we're dealing with are the Erev Rav, or they've learned from the deeds and the actions of the Erev Rav. In the words and closing words of the Gra, all the calamities, all the tragedies, destructions that we've had throughout thousands of years of Jewish history are from within, from the multitudes, from the Erev Rav. May we see, even today, the entire rebuilding of the land of Israel, the temple, the ingathering of the exiles, the final redemption with mercy.